Okay, let's trace this incredible story. The story of computation. We're going to go from these ancient, kind of corroded gears all the way to the supercomputer that is literally humming in your pocket right now. It is a wild, wild ride that spans millennia, so yeah, let's just jump right in. So, where does this all begin? Well, it starts with one of the most mind-blowing things ever pulled from the ocean, the Antikythera mechanism. I mean, just picture it. Divers find this thing in a shipwreck, it's 2,000 years old, and it's got these 37 intricate, perfect little gears. And what was it for? Oh, just, predicting eclipses and tracking the entire cosmos. To put that into perspective, nobody saw that level of mechanical complexity again for over 1,000 years. Our ancestors weren't just stargazing, they were literally trying to bottle the universe's math in metal. All right, so how do we get from those incredible bronze gears to the digital world we live in? It wasn't fast, I'll tell you that. It was this long, slow grind of trying to capture logic, repeatable instructions, but in a purely mechanical form. And that really set the stage for everything.
And what's just striking is the sheer amount of time between these early ideas. I mean, you leap from the Greeks, who are basically downloading the cosmos into bronze, all the way to medieval monks sliding beads on an abacus, which is, kind of a form of proto-coding. And then there's another huge jump to the Industrial Revolution. We're talking centuries of not much.
And this is where it gets really interesting. This brings us to the Jacquard loom. Now, by using these punch cards to tell the loom what patterns to make, it was literally weaving code directly into silk. Think about it. Each hole, or lack of a hole, was a binary choice, a 1 or a 0. This wasn't just about making fancy fabric, people. This was the great-great-great-grandparent of your laptop. The first time a machine could be programmed to do a complex, repeatable task all on its own. And that, of course, brings us to the visionary, Ada Lovelace. She looked at that loom. She saw Charles Babbage's designs. And she had this absolutely breathtaking insight. She realized these machines, they could do way more than just crunch numbers. They could handle symbols, logic, even art. She saw the potential for what you could call encoded imagination. And Babbage's dream? Well, it was called the analytical engine. And it was designed to be this cathedral of logic and brass, a massive, steam-powered, honest-to-goodness general-purpose computer. Now, it was never fully built while he was alive, but that doesn't matter. The idea itself was the real invention. I mean, a concept like that in the Victorian era, truly revolutionary. Okay, so for centuries, progress was mechanical. It was clunky. It was slow. But then, a whole new force enters the picture: electricity. And when you merge information with electricity, well, the pace of innovation just explodes. The world was literally never the same again. And the ramp-up was immediate. You had Herman Hollerit's tabulators using those same punch card ideas to crush the 1890 U.S. Census in a fraction of the time. His company? It eventually became IBM. But the real game changer, the thing that threw gasoline on the fire, was World War II. All of a sudden, computers weren't just these dusty academic projects anymore. Machines like Colossus and ENIAC were room-sized monsters. And they were weapons, cracking enemy codes and calculating artillery tables. But these giant room-sized brains had a fatal flaw. They ran on these bulky, fragile, super inefficient glass things called vacuum tubes. The solution? Well, it arrived in 1947 when some brilliant folks at Bell Labs invented the transistor. And let me be clear, this wasn't just some new gadget. This was the birth of the entire digital cosmos. I mean, the leap forward here was just monumental. You go from these large, hot, unreliable glass tubes to these tiny little solid-state switches. They were smaller, they were way faster, and they used just a fraction of the power. This is what let us go from switching electricity thousands of times a second to billions. And that, right there, is what made everything else possible. So, with the transistor in hand, a whole new kind of evolution took over. This wasn't the slow, steady plodding of before. Oh no, this was predictable, and it was exponential. It was a relentless march of making things smaller and smaller and smaller, and that would define the next half-century. Yeah, this relentless pace, you've probably heard of it. It's called Moore's Law, named after Intel co-founder Gordon Moore. And his prediction was simple but profound. The number of transistors you could cram onto a chip would double about every 2 years, and at the same time, the cost would get cut in half. Now, this wasn't a law of physics, right? But it basically became a self-fulfilling prophecy for the entire industry. And because of it, progress just went vertical. And the result of that prophecy, it's just staggering. Take the first microprocessor, the Intel 404. It had about 2,300 transistors. Okay, now fast forward 5 decades. A single Apple M1 chip has 16 billion. That is not just growth, that is hyper-evolution happening on a tiny piece of silicon. Just let that number sink in for a second. 16 billion. That's 16 billion little switches, all firing in perfect harmony, packed into a space smaller than a postage stamp. The sheer scale of it, it's almost impossible to really wrap your head around. So all this incredible shrinking power, it led to the next giant leap. We were finally able to take computation out of those giant room-sized mainframes and put it directly into the hands of regular people, you and me. This was the democratization of computing. And this whole democratization thing, it happened in stages. First, you get the microprocessor, an entire computer on one chip. Then you get the hobbyist era, right? The Altair, the Apple II, sparking a revolution in garages across the country. Pretty soon, the IBM PC and the Macintosh make computers a normal thing to have in offices and homes. And then, finally, this little network called ARPANET, connecting a few university labs, well, that grows up to become the World Wide Web. Which brings us right here to today. The end result of that entire journey is probably the device you're holding in your hand or sitting in your pocket right now. And I am not exaggerating when I say this. Your smartphone has vastly more computing power than all of NASA had when they put a man on the moon in 1969. I mean, a modern smartphone can perform over 1 trillion operations per second. That's a million calculations every single second. It's not just a phone anymore, is it? It's your camera, your navigator, your library, your TV. It has become the Swiss Army knife of modern civilization. And now we're standing on the edge of the next great frontier. Because with all this unimaginable power, we're moving beyond just building better tools. We are now in the business of building digital minds. And the speed of this latest revolution it's just astounding. You have the deep learning breakthrough in 2012. Just a few years later, AlphaGo beats the world's best Go player, a legendary moment. Then transformer models like GPT show up, and by 2022, ChatGPT is a household name. The acceleration is absolutely dizzying. You have to understand, this marks a really fundamental shift. We're not just programming machines to follow a list of instructions anymore. We are training digital minds. We're building them with these vast numbers of parameters. You can just think of them like digital neurons and synapses. And in some cases, these models have more of those connections than a human brain. We are, for the first time, beginning to build rival intellects. And this brings the whole incredible journey full circle, doesn't it? We've gone from the bronze gears of the Antikythera mechanism to the mind-bending potential of quantum silicon. We've gone from mechanical astrology to simulating entire universes. Every single app you use, every pixel on your screen, it's all part of this wild lineage that stretches back over 2,000 years. The future isn't something that's coming. It's already here, humming away in your pocket. Which, it kind of leaves us with a final, pretty profound question. After this epic evolution from modeling the cosmos in metal all the way to building digital brains, what if this has all been part of a much larger process? Are we just the operators here, or is this maybe the universe itself slowly waking up to its own nature through the language of code?